Hello and welcome to this video. Today we're going to talk about something that actually affects every person on this planet, which is the mind virus. And the mind virus is not something that's emotional or spiritual, and it's not even personal. It's a simple program inside of your mind that repeats itself over and over again. And I call that mind virus. And this mind virus creates fixed beliefs. And these beliefs shape your reality in a way that they block change, they create tension, and they make you defend kind of every pattern that keep you stuck in life. And the sneaky thing about the mind virus is that you just don't see it. Usually we are just thinking what we think what we think is correct, and we do what we do within kind of a certain box, within a certain frame. And if you see the virus, if you can identify it and if you can change it, you can step out of the frame and create results in your life that are not close to your current results. So basically, you can create a life that is wonderful, not one that is more predictable like it usually is. And to get to this kind of life, it's important to understand that the mind virus, it's actually something that makes you defend all the patterns that keep you stuck. So in this video, I will show you what the mind virus is, how it works, the most common versions of it, and how you can actually remove it from your system. Okay, let us begin. So the mind virus is a belief that pretends to be a fact, a thought that appears in your mind, and the mind treats it as if it is a truth. And once the mind accepts it, it becomes automatic. And you can imagine, if it's automatic, there's not much we do about it. So it's like running unconsciously. We are not even aware of what's happening. And it shapes how you actually interpret every situation, which means that it also shapes on how you react. It shapes how you feel. It shapes what you do. It shapes then, of course, your results. And to understand this clearly, imagine a simple sequence of 3 steps. Let's look at them here at the whiteboard. We have those 3 steps here. The first step is the action, the second, the belief, and the third, the reaction. So the action is kind of something that happens, which is triggering something, triggering a process, or in other words, it triggers the belief. So basically on how you're filtering, how you are receiving what you observe or experience at this level. And then based on your belief, you get certain results, a certain reaction. And a lot of times these reactions are kind of repetitive things that we usually do not prefer. Okay, so let's get back to the trigger. The trigger is usually anything. It can be literally anything. It can be a message, it can be a number in your bank account, it can be a memory, it can be music, it can be a noise, it can be a thought about your future. When you get that trigger, the beliefs is the one that interprets the trigger. And if the belief is distorted, the interpretation becomes distorted. So the reaction then feels automatic because it comes from the belief and not from the actual situation. And this is the core of the mind virus. The belief filters everything. And you have already may heard of that thoughts create emotions, emotions create actions, and actions create result. And a lot of times we are then kind of stuck in a certain cycle. And now the question could be, okay, but where is the mind virus at this point? Like, where do you think the virus here could be? And the virus operates actually inside of the belief box. That is where things are happening, where we are stuck and where things are invisible. So we are being kind of controlled without seeing it. And the interesting thing now is it kind of works, it operates here in the belief box, but what it actually does is it creates a box all around it. So basically it's kind of spreading around it, which means that over time your actions and your reactions, or the result, what's happening in your life, is kind of a repetitive pattern based on that virus. And virus in this case doesn't mean that it works for you, right? So basically it works against you. So you experience a lot of limitation and things that you don't want. And when it comes to change, when it comes to live a different life, no matter if it's finances, relationship, health, fitness, or other aspects of your life, it's usually very hard to get there without discipline, without motivation, because when we use discipline and motivation, we actually are fighting the virus instead of uninstalling it, instead of seeing it like an antivirus program and removing it from the system and then do things effortlessly. And that's why we think it's so hard to do this in life, it's so hard to lose weight, it's so hard to be in a relationship, everything kind of seems to be hard. And I remember when I was a child, the teachers told me, enjoy your time in school because this is the best time of your life. And today I'm 36 and I'm like, what? What? This is not even true. This is not even true. But people think it's true. And again, why do we think it's true? Why do we even think that? And it's because this one here is creating the story, it's creating the limitations for, of course, a higher purpose, which we talk about in this video too. It's just important to understand that the facts that we thought are facts are oftentimes just results from or based on the virus and not true facts. And if you get that, you can really get out of the things that society has told you. You can unlearn kind of everything and live your best life in your 30s, 40s, 50s. Be the fittest in your 30s, 40s, 50s, But everywhere we see people who say, oh, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, now I'm tired, now I have pain, now this, now that, and they think it's normal to get sick, and all of those kind of things. And it's all based on the virus. Now, let's take a look at the 8 most common mind viruses that keep people stuck. The first one is, I can figure it out alone. And you probably have heard it. Somebody you see or needs help in certain things, but they think they can figure things out. And it's with everything. It can be with business, or it can be even with something like getting off of addictions, getting out of certain problems or something. But everybody thinks they can figure it out alone. And I've seen this a lot, especially in my business journey. There were like people, entrepreneurs, who just don't look for help because they think if they spend money, it's a spending. They don't see it's an investment. And we have like a lot of thoughts why it's better to not do it with others, why we can do it alone. And that's like a huge thing, a huge barrier, a huge limitation that many people live by. And what it creates actually is first isolation. It takes you out. So now you're more within yourself, within your own loops. You're kind of within your own chamber of echoes. So then the question is, how do you grow there? It's like you're the smartest person in the room. How do you improve? Like you're the best player on the court. How do you improve? It's pretty difficult, right? And what it also does is it denies us support. So we are going kind of alone through everything, and we need to do everything by our own selves. And that's what I see a lot in the business world when people become entrepreneurs and then they talk about freedom, but they're like slaves of their own. Now they need to work 100% for their self in a way that it's not 9 to 5, it's like 7 to 10 p.m. or something, It's like all day. But think about it. How would you build a business? You would rather earn 1% on 100 people instead of 100% on your own efforts, right? And this has many, many facets actually you could come up with, but it's important to understand that this is one of the main things. Number 2, situation X makes people feel bad. And what we do here actually is we are bringing up stories or narratives which tell us that this is normal, that everybody feels like that. So an example here could be fasting. People could say, fasting is hard for everyone, it's so difficult, or one feels so bad after a few hours, which means that it's not me, it's everyone, So what happens here is basically the responsibility is being given away, because now it's not you anymore, it's not I am who feels in a certain way, it's everyone, it's we, it's us, it's the collective. And by giving away the responsibility, you for sure have a topic with taking responsibility. And that's what the mind virus does. It keeps you in that where you don't take responsibility, you have fear of it, fear of losing, fear of missing out, fear of failing, those kind of things. And you just generalize it in a way that you don't even need to consider thinking about it. But if you generalize something like that, then the difficulty is that you cannot change it. Because now it's a fact in the world. It's like science tells you something is in a way how it is, and now it is like that. There's no way to change it. And since it's true what you believe it's true, you make your changes in life or your life in general very, very difficult. Point number 3 is a classic I already know X. So basically people know everything. They know about money, about health, about food. If you ask anyone about anything of these things, it's kind of everybody knows. Everybody knows about everything, about fitness, about relationships. It's just incredible. You can go to anyone, ask a question about finance or relationships, and they will give you an answer, right? So everybody knows. And when it comes about oneself, then they know what they already did, so they can predict the future based on their past without thinking that in that meantime, something has changed, right? They learned stuff, they got new perspectives, something is different. But they think they just know everything already. They know the outcomes, they know how they will feel, they know how they will react, they know how other people will react. And that is kind of creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. And with that self-fulfilling prophecy comes the blockage of learning. Because now if you know already everything, then you don't ask questions. You just put out statements. No questions, no open questions. So you're basically stuck. And if you're stuck in a universe that's expanding, that's growing, then basically you are going down. It's like a stagnation because there's no stillness at this point. You either can go up or go down, and that's what happens to many people. That's why we see most people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Over time, they get more miserable, they get more diseases, and all of those kind of expressions that show us that this virus here is working through them. Point number 4 is I cannot feel better until something changes. So it's the feeling or it's the concept of if this, then that. And that is actually the outsourcing of power, or in other words, victimization. Because now the environment has power over you. Now people have power over you because you think, or people then tend to think, he can make me happy, he can make me feel sad, he can make this and that. But it's not true. Only you can do it based on that. And that is what is it doing. So if you felt all your life that somebody can make you happy or sad, it's always you who did it. The tricky thing about this one is that once you outsource your power, you are not able to change, because then you're kind of living in a theme of victimization. So you're always a victim. And once you're a victim in one thing, you will stay a victim in other certain aspects of your life. Because this is how this thing is going. It's like spreading. It's spreading through our areas of life. And what do people do who say things like that? They usually wait. They wait until something changes. But at the end, nothing is going to change. Besides, at one point, the regret starts to kick in. And you see a lot of times that these people are the ones who kind of died in their 20s and they're just waiting to be buried in their 60s or 70s. That's what's kind of mainstream, because this virus is mainstream. Point number 5, this is just how I am, or sometimes also it is how it is. This is actually a mechanism that hardens your identity, which means that it turns your patterns or a set of patterns into a personality, which then creates, of course, your reality based on your patterns. So if you don't know, if you didn't choose the patterns, then you basically live just by what has been given to you by others, which also means that authenticity is usually not part of your life, because you are not living through you, you're living as your patterns, and you just think things are how they are, and if they are how they are, you are stopping the evolution of yourself, because again, it's repeating itself over and over again. Things maybe look a bit different, but emotionally, the feeling is more or less the same. Point number 6, people will judge me. That's an interesting one, because here we are starting to predict the future. So we kind of know again what's coming. And if you know things and you treat those things as a fact, then it means you're quite limited based on something that you want to achieve. Because when would you say something like that? People will judge me. If you would want to do something that you feel is you, it's kind of you're part of your authenticity, but you are not doing it, you're repressing it because you are having the fear of judgment, which kind of means that you're censoring yourself. It's a self-censorship, which then in the long run, of course, means physical disease, and all created again by the virus in our minds. Point number 7, I must know before I start. That's an interesting one too, and I've seen it in all areas of my life. I personally experienced it in school when like mathematics or geometry didn't make sense to me, because I was asking, why should I learn all of that? How will I use it? And nobody could answer what that was for. So I was really not caring about it. I was not good in school. And now I think I could have benefited from it, right? That's something that you know when it comes to new journeys. You know, when somebody has a passion, or they are finding slowly their passion when it comes to inner work, you know, they're on a path. And then it's about, okay, now act on your passion. But then they are starting to be afraid or worrying because, oh, but I don't know this, I don't know that, I need to figure things out, everything, how it works, and then I can start. It's kind of, I need to start perfect. But you may heard it, it's better to start without perfection instead of never start with perfection. And on the way you will find things out. I mean, think about it. If you drive from A to B, like a long journey by car, do you know all the streets? Do you know everything that's coming? Do you know all the lights that you need to stop at? And what is it that you know? No, you know the next step, the next step, the next step. So basically what you know there is the information that the navigation system gives you. And we also have a compass or navigation system inside of us, which kind of gives us the thing. So if you start to act on it, you will see the next step, step by step by step by step. But with that, if you think that this is true and this is a fact, you're kind of paralyzed into perfection, which means you will never start anything. And the core reason is actually that's kind of a mechanism to hide your fear of failure or fear of mistakes. And if you don't know that you're afraid of it, because that's what you tell yourself, right? You're not afraid. I'm not afraid of it. I just need to know. I just want to know. This is just how I am. This is just how I work. Then how can you work on that and overcome it? So basically, you can't, and that's why it's so important to understand what's underlying these kind of narratives or beliefs. And the 8th and last point for today is something is wrong with me, and that is for sure the deepest one of all. That's for sure the deepest one, because if it comes to transformation in life, if life tells you, you know what, your life is over. You're worrying about money is over. You're worrying about health is over. You're worrying about waking up in the morning and not being motivated, not having energy is over. Life does it by working with deep and intense emotions. But we don't learn that. We think this is going to happen if we feel those deep, intense emotions, that something is wrong with us. And if you think something is wrong with you and you start to ask the question, what is wrong with you? Then you're going down a rabbit hole. Then it's getting really deep and painful. That is actually what depression at the end is. Because people suffer from something that is not meant to be suffering from. It's just a transition phase. But these things are keeping you stuck there. And it's all because we think that emotional intensity is a flaw. We think it's a weakness. We don't see what we can do anymore because it's a dissolution of self, which means that at one point we're coming back into a new identity, which is on the path that we always dreamed about. And this virus, since it is like a virus of the collective, it creates shame because everybody thinks something is wrong with the people who are having these kind of symptoms, who are having these diagnoses, who are needing this and that and taking medication and doing this and that, Everybody looks down to them. And then people who are in a situation think, oh shit, now it's me. Now it's got me. And it's not healable. Now what can I do? It develops shame. And shame leads to a shutdown. So you don't grow. So basically, now you got something that was here for your evolution and you cannot use it, and you instead are shutting down and you're suffering years, decades, or maybe the rest of your life from something that was always a gift, just hidden in emotions that have been told by that it's something negative, but it has never been something negative. And that's why it's important to understand these narratives, to understand these beliefs. And these are just 8. There are many, many more. But I'm sure that all of us know at least 1 or 2 of these 8. And we probably are telling us the stories ourselves. So if you know, now you have the chance to do something about it. Or in other words, to reclaim your power and become again the creator that you have been, that you always have been. That's what you came here for. And not to be a victim and small and in pain and suffer and stuck in cycles and da-da-da-da. So you take back your life. Now, let's look at a very important question. And the question is, why does the mind virus exist at all? Why is it here? Why is it here? What do you think? So, the mind virus exists to actually create a closed system of experience. And this system allows you to have a stable identity. If the mind stayed completely open, identity would dissolve instantly. Or in other words, you could not live the life as you. You would be just dissolved into something. So it has a big purpose because we came here to experience actually limitations and a certain identity. But the cool thing is, at one point, we are getting back to the knowledge that this is how things work and we can change it, and with that we can create a totally different experience. So basically your life was hard and tough before, and on the other part it can be really amazing in the exact opposite, because now you have 2 sides, and with 2 sides you can experience both. But if one is missing and not existing, how can you experience the other? And that is why this is actually not something bad, it's actually a gift. It's just for the ones who are ready to hear that and are willing to change. They can use that information now and turn their lives completely around and realize their real dreams. So to have that identity, we need fixed beliefs. And these fixed beliefs are holding a personality in place just long enough for you to live from one consistent point of view. And the mind virus also creates a fixed perspective. So you're not always changing and jumping around. You are sure about yourself in some way or form. And this limitation creates emotional density. And without density, again, there's no contrast. And without contrast, there is no clear growth. And the mind virus also creates a controlled environment for learning. Certain lessons only appear in pressure, in responsibility, in choice, in emotional regulation, in boundaries, awareness. So these lessons need friction and they also need limitation. And the mind virus provides that friction through rigid beliefs. So the mind virus is not punishment. Again, it's happening actually for us. It's part of the human experience. And you learn to become aware inside that limitation. And once awareness grows, the virus starts to lose power. So now, let's talk about how to detect a mind virus in real time. And there are actually 3 simple signs. Sign 1 is that the belief sounds absolute. It uses words like always, like never, everyone, or no way. This is a pretty straightforward sign. Sign 2. The belief creates tension in the body. This means that you feel pressure, for example, when you think about it. Now, this can be a bit tricky because usually we are disconnected, like we are living very rational or hyper-rational in our lives at the moment, which means we're disconnected from our bodies, we're like cut off. And if you're cut off, you sometimes don't feel what's going on in your body because it's actually so much pain. So that's why it can be very difficult to now think one of these thoughts and then feel it in your body. So it really needs some focus, some moment of stillness to actually feel it and see what your body is telling you. And sign number 3, the belief blocks possibility. It closes the door instead of opening it. And that's something that you can check pretty easy. If you look at one of those, or one of your beliefs, or one of your statements that you say, maybe to other people, you can think of different scenarios. How else could it be? So basically you can ask your question, or, so you say something like, this is just how I am. Or, and with that or, you're getting to alternatives. And just think it through. What if one of those alternatives would be true? Would you have more opportunities, or would you have less opportunities? And if you see you would have more if they would be true, then you can see that this is probably a sign that the virus is working through your system and it's not even real. So basically there's a thought that you think is yours, but it's probably not even yours. It's coming from outside and you believe it's yours, and that's why you're treating it so like it's so important and so real, and you're following just what your mind is telling you. And if you're noticing these signs, then you're looking at the mind virus. And if you look at the mind virus, then the next question that maybe or probably would come up is, how do I remove the mind virus? And to remove the mind virus, you can actually use 4 steps. The first step is catch the sentence. So identify the exact phrase in your mind that is repeating. Write down what you think during the day. Step 2, shift from this is true or this is a fact to this is a thought. It is a thought. And when you think it is a thought and it's not a fact, it's not 100% true, then you're breaking at this step the automatic reaction, which is really important to break the whole loop. Step 3 is move your attention to the body. Because again, I said we have an inner guidance, we have an inner compass. I know we've been taught, take care of your retirement, save money, be safe, So much programming in this way that we think there's nothing that guides us. Everything is so dangerous, everything is so hard, That is why we usually don't listen to it. But if you start to move the attention down inside of your body, all around, see what's going there, then you can find answers and you can reconnect with that inner navigation system and ask yourself, where do I feel it? Where do I feel this sentence, this belief, this narrative, the story that I'm telling myself? And how does it feel? Does it have a color? Does it have a shape? So it's about identifying it inside of your body. And this also interrupts the loop and brings awareness into the physical layer. And this is where we operate, right? Because what do you want to change in your life? You usually want to change kind of things in the physical world and not just how you feel. You want certain experiences outside. So we need to kind of work in the physical, and that's what we do by connecting to the body. And step number 4 is choose a direction instead of a new belief. For example, instead of I must do it alone, shift to something like I am open to support. The shift does not need to be dramatic. It just needs to be open for one more door that was closed before. And this is how you disarm the virus, because the virus at the end limits the doors. There are many, many doors, but they're kind of all closed. You just see one. It's just one way. It's just one thing. It's like the focus into reality is very narrow, very small. And that's why people, depending on how that grew, how that spread through one's personality, we have more or less options in life, more or less flexibility, or we are more rigid. We can do less things. So by just opening one door, you're starting to do something that you may have never done before. And that's how you disarm the virus. But remember that we don't fight the virus, because the virus is not evil per se. It allowed us to make a certain experience that we would have never been able to make without it. So it's not personal, it's not emotional, it's just a mechanical program that repeats itself until awareness interrupts it. And that's what we brought up here in this video. The moment you see a belief as a belief, it starts to lose control over you. And this is the moment where you're getting back the control to your life. You're becoming responsible again. You're becoming creative again. And you're becoming authentic again. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed the video, this is the channel where we will talk about more about reality, emotions, how to change things, how to transform things, how to really create a life we're dreaming about. And if you're interested in that, feel free to follow. Thank you for watching and see you soon.